Meet 24 EvelJustin 24. As a self-described socialist, it's not surprising that he has some problems with libertarians.
Just thought I'd put a verbal ass-whipping on some of these libertarian some of these Ron Paul tards that think the federal government is the root of all evil, and that's what's caused the mess we're in.
So I couldn't help but respond to one of the videos on his channel called the Libertarian Question. Here it is. Most of this video is based on misunderstanding, fear-mongering, and misrepresentation.
Libertarians, there is a fundamental question that you're going to have to come up with the answer to eventually. And the question is this: do you think that the individual rights of a business outweigh or are more important than the individual rights of a worker or than a consumer?
No. No.
No,
No.
of course not.
No. No.
Libertarians
No.
are strong
No.
believers in the idea of equal rights for all and special privileges for none.
No.
For example, if a corporation violates an individual's right to property, they should be punished just as severely as an individual would be punished for violating another individual or corporation's property.
You basically want to abolish all these government institutions like the EPA and the FDA that tell these big businesses, hey, look, you can't pollute the environment. Look, you can't take shortcuts and end up poisoning the food or giving us food of poor quality. You have to put warning labels on this. You want to get rid of all that.
How ironic. A libertarian society would have much less environmental damage, degradation, and death. For instance, if a corporation ran an incinerator which gave locals leukemia, a truly libertarian society would prosecute and condemn that corporation for violating the life, liberty, and property of individuals. Because the FDA kept beta blocker medication off the US market for years, quote, as many as 100,000 people might have died from secondary heart attacks waiting for FDA approval, unquote. So neither of these agencies are the governmental guardian angels you imply they are. Actually, their structures are so fundamentally problematic that major reform or abolition is not as radical a notion as you make it out to be.
And before we had these laws, they weren't giving their workers a decent wage. They weren't giving them decent hours. They were killing them. So if they're not doing it, if they're not doing these things without the laws, what makes you think that it's going to be any different this time?
Maybe you're not aware of the economic theory of Fordism, developed by, of course, Henry Ford.
Quote, Fordism is the eponymous manufacturing system designed to spew out standardized low-cost goods and afford its workers blah 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 blah. Major successes stemmed from three major principles. 1, the standardization of the product. 2, the use of special purpose tools and or equipment. 3, workers are paid higher living wages so they can afford to purchase the products they make. Now, if you look up here, this isn't only for the car industry. It also says, although Fordism was a method used to improve productivity in the automotive industry, this principle could be applied to any kind of manufacturing process. So wait a minute. A big, evil, greedy, self-serving, profit-seeking manufacturing corporation finds that it's in their own self-interest to increase their profits by paying their workers a living wage, no government coercion required? Shut the front door! And one other point. Most libertarians, except the anarchist libertarians, and I'm not one of them, don't advocate the complete abolition of government regulation. Rather, they want to rely on peaceful voluntary interaction as much as possible to regulate the market. And that's usually much more effective than a government bureaucracy.
Government's also a necessary institution when it comes to keeping us safe. There's a reason we have stop signs and road signs and lines in the middle of the road, and there's reasons, you don't have to pay some private contractor a fee just to drive out on the goddamn highway, okay?
This is a total straw man argument. No one's arguing for the abolition of road signs and the little lines in the middle of the road. Completely ridiculous straw man argument. And remember that we're already paying to drive on the highways. We pay in the form of tolls to the government. And if I had to choose between paying a small fee to a private contractor and receiving all the benefits of privatization, or pay a small fee to the government and face all the costs of nationalization, I would choose the private contractor any day of the week.
No IRS. Alright, no taxes, no income taxes, no regulations on these CEOs or these big business people. A bunch of laws are gone.
The laws that would be gone would be bad laws.
Sure, for social issues it'd be a lot better, but who's gonna give a about whether you could smoke pot when you're too poor to afford it?
Well, I've already tried to prove to you that if we returned to a libertarian society, wages wouldn't just drop off a cliff. Furthermore, if marijuana was legalized, the cost would actually drop. And besides that, wouldn't you want to end the destructive cost of the drug war, leaving tens of thousands of people dead and hundreds of thousands of people overcrowding our prisons?
I understand that government wastes money. I understand that it wastes on things like war and killing people. And that's something I'm adamantly opposed to. But the only reason it's starting these wars is because of the profit motive. You libertarians are protecting that. You're not anti-war. You're protecting that bull.
Wow. Slavery is freedom and freedom is slavery. That is Orwellian doublespeak at its finest. People like Ron Paul have been opposing these wars for years. And yet you still call them pro-war for some reason. Look, the military-industrial complex encourages the push for war. The Constitution gives Congress the power to declare war. They can't just pass off responsibility onto the Halliburtons of the world. Wars have also been fought over ideology and power, not having to do with profit.
Imagine a libertarian world for just a minute.
Alright, let's go for it. Because government destruction of American wealth and money is halted, America has become almost perpetually prosperous. The American people use their increased wealth to voluntarily care for the poor and needy, while a minimal safety net cares for those who fall through the cracks. People are given both maximum economic and maximum social liberty, and the free society has developed ways of peacefully moderating the excesses of freedom. Foreign policy has become purely defensive, and Americans no longer worry about the government thievery required to maintain an excessive welfare and warfare state. Although far from being heaven on earth, it is the pinnacle of human progress and well-being. However, some people will become convinced of a fictional better world and attempt to destroy the goodness that surrounds them to create what can only be described as egalitarian slavery. The future of that free society depends on the willingness of its people to chase after idealistic fantasies which only destroy and enslave.